it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen.
A blizzard. A stranger's kindness. 12 days that blur the line between reality and something far darker. Sailor thought they'd found shelter, but what they found was a bargain that should never have been made.
12 Days of Snow by Luminaria. Day 1. It was cold, though I guess that's to be expected when you're walking in the middle of a snowstorm. I was almost knees deep in a carpet of white. In hindsight, it was a dumb idea to be outside in this kind of weather, but in my defense, it wasn't this cold when I started my trip. It all just fell too quick. White fog escaped my mouth when I breathed, and I squinted through it to look down at my watch, raising it closer to my face. The needles had stopped moving at some points. It broke. Figures. I hunched further inside my jacket and tried to pull my sleeves further over my fingers before they froze. A pale shadow moved in my peripheral vision. I turned to look, but no one was there. Just snow falling and wind rustling. I sighed. My chest felt tight when the memories flooded back in. I can't recall the first time I saw those things. They've been around since I was a little kid. I knew they weren't real. Monsters don't exist. And the meds took the visions away, or used to. I couldn't pay for that sort of medicine while working at a cafe. Funny thing how the anxiety and hallucinations had been fine for my parents to deal with. Therapy, controlled meds, and hospital visits were fine too. But just me being me was past the limit. I was suddenly too much for them. Too much. Not that I was complaining. Jake had been a real bro to find this place for me when he found out my folks had kicked me out. Jake is a bro in general, the only co-worker who didn't mind switching shifts at times or cleaning the walk-in freezer, but, well, I digress. The advertisement was from some guy looking for a roommate to split house chores and rent, which was already crazy cheap, probably because the place was in the middle of nowhere, and the signal in the area was piss poor at best. But, hey, better having a roof than not. And just the thought of a heater already felt like a blessing. I could see the lights on the porch ahead already, but it seemed like an eternity passed before I reached it and pressed the doorbell. Nothing. The minutes stretched while I waited, breathing into my palms in an attempt to warm them up. I pressed the doorbell again. Nothing. There was nobody home. Oh crap, I was freezing here. What are you doing out there, kiddo? I lifted my head to see a man standing at the doorstep in a plain white t-shirt and jeans, lean frame, curly platinum white hair and ice blue eyes, eyebrows creased in a confused frown. I stared. He stared back. We held a staring contest for about 5 seconds before I managed to introduce myself. He ushered me inside and cranked the heating up until my teeth stopped chattering, which I was thankful for. And that's how I met Gabe. From the way he spoke, I assumed he was around my dad's age, though, judging by looks alone, I'd have believed it if someone had told me he was 25. He was one of those people who aged annoyingly well, I guess. He looked, for all intents and purposes, like a Greek statue had escaped the museum and was now walking around. Well, sort of walking if you ignore the crutches. Gabe was a veteran. I'm not sure about the details, but warded a number on his legs. He could still get around on his own, but he was slow and couldn't stand for long periods. The part on that ad about splitting house chores started making more sense then, other than, just being a common courtesy. You can have the room upstairs. Got any luggage? No, just my backpack. Okay, make yourself at home. There's food in the fridge, but fair warning, I'm a vegetarian, so if you want meat, you go get it and cook it yourself. Day 2. The house was like a small 2-story cottage furnished in vintage style. There were antiques everywhere, or at least dupes good enough for my untrained eye not to notice the difference. There was even a corded phone in the living room, those with the twirly cable and numbers in a turning disc instead of on a keyboard. There were electrical sockets, no issue, so at least I wouldn't have to worry about keeping my phone charged. But the snowstorm outside was doing its thing. I wasn't getting a signal, neither cell phone nor Wi-Fi. Sadly, that meant ordering a pizza was out of the question. We had eggs and toast for breakfast, where I was pleasantly surprised to find a large assortment of jams in the cupboard, and pasta with an extremely cheesy sauce for lunch. Not the lot of healthy veggies and salads I'd been expecting, but hey, if food was going to be like that every meal, I wasn't going to complain. On the lower floor was the landing and living room, a little kitchen and dining room blended space, a bathroom, an office, and Gabe's room. Upstairs was my room, another larger bathroom, and a little atrium, sunroom of sorts. Everything felt old, but in a lived-in way rather than the sunroom, which I had to dust off and sweep. It made sense. It was pretty cold with the current weather, and Gabe mostly stayed downstairs, either watching the old TV in the living room, reading, or painting in his office. His office smelled of ink and turpentine, and was cluttered with more books, strewn papers, frames, and canvases than should have fitted in the small room. It was hard to even walk in without tripping on something. The books were all over the place and didn't seem to follow any specific theme or language. A bunch of them I couldn't read, not even the title, but it was the paintings that were the stars of the room. Do you, sell those for a living? Nah, it's just a hobby. Gets boring here pretty fast otherwise. Well, if you ever felt like selling the paintings, they might bring in some good cash. I wasn't an artist by any means, but even I could see that they were stunning. The depth and perspective of everything, the way the sun and shade in the images felt so real. For some of them, I had to look really close to notice the brushstrokes and make sure they weren't actually pictures taken with a camera. There were flowers and still life, wide landscapes, idyllic scenes, and people partying. Hey, got any favorites, kiddo? My eyes wandered around until settling on a painting the size of a sheet of printer paper framed on the back wall. A dainty girl in a summer dress and with long wavy hair stood beneath a large tree, peeling some sort of fruit, while a pair of children sat nearby, I assumed waiting for the snacks to be handed out. While the full picture was great, it was obvious that a lot more care and effort had been put on the girl than on everything else. That's your girlfriend? I teased. My little sister, he simply said and shrugged. Or, how I remember her as. I haven't seen her in ages. Oh, now that was awkward. You look alike. I'll take that as a compliment, thanks, he snickered. I wasn't fully sure on how my life would keep unfolding from then on, but at least now the uncertainty wasn't as suffocating as before. For now, I liked the house, and I liked Gabe. I went to bed feeling light and hopeful, and paid no heed to the shadows flickering outside. Day 6. I woke up to a light tapping sound, repeating non-stop. I didn't know if it was too early or just the weather making the sky darker than it was supposed to be. The storm still raged on, snow falling and dulling the sounds outside, till everything felt strangely empty. I begrudgingly opened my eyes and stood up, wondering if there was a rat or some bug scurrying around. There was a face on my window, and hands gripping the sill from the outside. My heart kind of skipped a beat. I rubbed the sand off my eyes and looked again. Well, there was no one there, of course. I breathed a sigh of relief, changing clothes and heading to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my hair. I forgot the hairbrush, so I had to turn back again. And then, the face was there, cheeks and fingers patting against the window. A crackly grey skin and a mouth with too many teeth. You're not real. I'm seeing things. I'm just seeing things, I told myself, pressing my palms against the window, trying to gather some speck of rationality my frayed nerves hadn't destroyed yet. Well, the glass felt cold and solid, a safe barrier between me and... The face slammed itself against the window with a dull thud. I screamed. Gabe made his way up the stairs after a while. I'm not sure how long. When he got there, I was curled into a ball in the corner, still screaming and crying. Couldn't stop, just that thing. That dead-looking thing. Oh, just take it away. It's okay, kiddo. It's okay now. You just breathe. I forced myself to blink. There was nothing on my window. Of course there wasn't. This was the second floor. But that face. An ashen grey face with a rusty, deformed metal plate covering half of it. Its breath fogged the window, its discoloured cheeks and fingers making low, disconcerting noises as they were rubbed against the glass pane. Sad. Old. Broken. That face was printed in my mind now. I could still see it when I closed my eyes. It felt so real, but it wasn't real. I mean, it couldn't be. God, I was going crazy. Gabe guided me into sitting down on the bed and taking deep, slow breaths, then sat down with me while I tried to focus. I was trying to regain control of my own lungs and organize my thoughts into a more coherent stream. Air in, air out, rinse and repeat. It took a couple of minutes until I was breathing more or less normally, but I still couldn't stop shaking. Gabe theorized that giving me a sugar boost might help, so we moved to the kitchen, and I sat down with a bag of ice pressed to my head while he whipped up a plate of syrupy pancakes for me. Thanks, Gabe. You're an angel. And you're a human, he snorted and patted my back. Just eat your pancakes. I did, or I nibbled the pancakes at least. They tasted good, but I just couldn't muster much of an appetite. Hey, why did you join the war? I asked. Why that question now? You don't strike me as the sort of guy who'd ever wield a gun. Why'd you do it? He said there wasn't a set reason. I could ask 10 of them why they went to the war, and I'd get 10 different answers. Some fought for freedom, a better future, or to protect others. Some fought to gain something, or because they were pressured to, or they felt like they had no choice. Some even fought just because everyone else was fighting too, so why not? My reason? None. I wasn't thinking at all. And he shook his head. My kid was murdered. One day he was out with friends, healthy and happy. Next he was dead and his face was covered in blood. That's what made me join really, really late. I just saw red and I wanted each and every one of them to suffer and die. He sighed. There was no kind word or talk of forgiveness that I'd listen to. You know what? No matter how many fell, it didn't make me feel better. No rest for the wicked, right? He chuckled, and it was the most bitter and sad sound I'd ever heard. Oh, I'm still angry, kiddo. Think I always will be. I just got tired, too. And so that was it. He lost his little boy, and then he just lost it. No honorable ideal, no nothing. Just violent and all-encompassing grief. I didn't know if that was something that should be forgiven or not, and I sure didn't ask him. I just ate my pancakes and let him keep patting my back, and I realized I wasn't shaking anymore. Day 12. Morning came with more snow, and I was starting to wonder if it would ever stop. It had been piling up for almost 2 weeks now, since the first day I'd arrived, like it was trying to gobble me up along with the whole house. We still had food for the time being, but it was starting to worry me seriously. Neither I nor Gabe had a car, and I couldn't see another house or any neighbors in the area. For how long would we be stranded in that building? Gabe told me to take it easy, mainly after what had happened the previous week. And I knew just worrying over it wasn't going to solve anything. But I was growing more and more anxious anyway, and that wasn't even mentioning the risk of me being fired because I couldn't possibly get to work. God, I prayed I wouldn't get fired. Well, at that rate, staying inside was going to drive me crazy, so I laid up as best I could and stepped outside, deciding I could at least do something productive and shovel the snow out of the porch. I figured that if it got too cold, I'd just go back inside, no harm done. Boy, was I wrong. A few minutes after I stepped outside, I could swear I saw something moving in the corners of my field of view. Then I turned, and there was nothing there. It was all in my head. I was getting worse, and that thought terrified me. There's no way I could pay for antipsychotics or therapy out of my own pockets. My current roommate was nice, but I only knew the guy for 2 weeks. What if I had another breakdown and he decided he didn't want to deal with me anymore? What would happen to me? Well, I had to hang in there. I needed to. A low rumble echoed from somewhere around, far away. I huffed, angrily dusting snow off the porch with both a shovel and my own shoes, and scraping the frost off the little ornamental fence, frustrated with myself. Something moved in my peripheral vision again. I squinted, straining my eyes and peering across the white horizon, and I waited, trying to convince myself there wasn't anything out there, because there shouldn't be. There was no one, nothing in that storm besides wild wind and frozen water. I was about to shove the last bit of snow off and call it a day when I saw them standing out there, by the edge of the yard, the faintest outlines of people. There were 3 of them, pale and immobile, partially camouflaged by the scenery's natural colour scheme. "Oh, what now?" I mumbled, momentarily forgetting my shovel. There weren't any people out in the storm besides me. That was the very problem I was facing, even with no one else living in that vicinity and no signal to contact civilization outside. What crazy stuff was my fried nincompoop brain trying to concoct this time? "Hello?" I called out loud. "Gabe, can you come out for a minute and check this out?" Yeah, I'm an idiot. So sue me. Oh, please don't. At least I still had half a mind to also ask her for a second opinion from someone who's probably not crazy. Except the guy was also one of the slowest walkers on the planet, so I was going to be waiting there for a while. I craned my neck and squinted once more, holding one hand cupped around my face to help me see and willing my eyes to either confirm or deny the humanoid figures standing at the very edge of my sight. Well, they were there. One seemed smaller than the other two, but I couldn't tell for sure. A child, or was it just farther away? Well, either way, they were starting to move now, staggering slightly in the snow. Maybe there really were people in there, freezing, like I'd been 2 weeks before. "Hey, you all right? Do you need help?" I called out to them. I was shouting, and even though the calling left my own lungs, I could barely hear it above the raging wind. That's my luck, I guessed. I shoveled the snow off the first couple of steps from the porch, trying to open up a path while they waddled past the yard edge. And then I bumped into something. One of the figures was suddenly beside me, and I smashed directly into it, almost sending myself cartwheeling in the snow. But instead I found myself on my knees, looking up at a shape far too tall and grey to be a living human. He stood at least 7 feet tall, in a wispy ash-grey cloak and half-molten pieces of armour, giving it the appearance of restraints rather than protection. A loop of bone adorned its head like a bizarre crown. The thing also wore a mask, or a broken helmet made of metal. Its breath echoed weirdly through the slits, and I could imagine an abnormal amount of eyes leering at me through the shadows of its face cover. Close. Too close. His fingers were almost touching me. "Oh, come on," I groaned, picking my shovel back up and angrily started shoveling the last remnants of snow off the pathway, chiding my own brain. Couldn't even be creative. Of course I couldn't. Always the same big, lanky, creepy shit. Well, newsflash for you, you defective organ living rent-free in my skull. I already know it's not real. It doesn't exist. It shoved its hand into my chest, solid and pointy, sharp fingers sinking past the ribcage. I sputtered, pain flaring through me so intense that I froze, twitching against the creature's hand. The weirdest part is, I wasn't bleeding. It's like the thing's fingers just passed through. Not as in an illusion or ghost passing through. No, it's as if my body was made of water and this monster ruptured that water's surface, and its fingers were now swimming inside me. I gasped and sputtered more, trying to pry it away, but it was stronger than me. They were stronger than me. The thing swarmed me, pinning me down and straddling my body, my arms pinned to my sides by grey, spindly limbs. It was like being sat on by a giant ice sculpture, by Edward Scissorhands or an ungodly blend of both. It was so cold it burned, so much I couldn't even scream. I thought the pain couldn't get any worse until it found whatever it was they were searching for in my chest and tugged it half out. It was pure, unbridled agony. Worse than if it had ripped my heart out. There was some sort of golden ball of light, its glow spilling to illuminate the porch like a weird garden lamp. It tore chunks off the light and brought them to its mouth. Christ, it was eating me. It hurts. It hurts. Oh my God, it hurts. Brother. It spoke? Someone was shouting. I turned my head slightly, trying to see what caught the thing's attention. There was Gabe, braced against the wall on the landing, flailing his crutches at the things atop me, like he was telling kids to get off his lawn. This is my domain, he started, stepping out of the house. This is my porch. Something made a weird breaking sound as he approached. It took me a second to realize it was one of the crutches, slammed against one of the creature's heads and sending it rearing into the snow. The crutch's thin wooden exterior splintered, revealing something sharp that glistened below. And this is my kid. I found him. He's mine now. You'll not have this one. I had the thought before that he didn't look like the sort of guy who'd wield a gun, and I was right. The thin twin longsword suited him a lot better, as weird as that was. His voice was starting to ring in my ears, though, distorting and echoing, like that thing's voice did. By the authority granted me hither, be gone or I'll splatter those bloody, corrupted heads of yours into smithereens, smaller than the fall itself could. The creature rose back from the snow, looking slightly disoriented, and then they all pounced at Gabe. Something in the back of my mind told me not to look, and I closed my eyes. But even through clenched eyelids and remaining prone on the ground, I could still feel a flare of light. The monsters instantly cleared away as waves of cold and heat washed over me. The noise hurt my ears, and something wet and warm started running from them and from my nose. It smelled like iron. Metal clashed against metal. I had no idea what was going on. It just hurt, and it was hard to breathe. I kept my eyes closed and tried to focus on breathing despite the pain. Gabe had gone silent, but I could hear the creatures screaming weird words and curses. Something about hordes of light and betrayal and fruits. They screamed and screamed and screamed, and then, one by one, their screams became gurgling, and it all finally stopped. Still with me, kiddo? Gabe's voice asked, no longer ringing like before. Cough if you're conscious. I coughed. Okay, good. Let's get you back inside. A pair of hands slid under my armpits and dragged me back into the house. He took me into his office, placing me belly up on the couch before staggering to sit on the armrest behind my head. A dull clang told me he'd dropped his crutches, swords, onto the floor nearby. What? I coughed again. What were those things? The unnamed. 2 Grigori and a cherub, if you want to be specific. Unnamed what? They're angels from the lower rank legions who were never given individual names. They lost their light in the fall and keep trying to get it back by eating others, which doesn't work, by the way. Gabe sighed. You can open your eyes, it's safe now. I forced my eyes open, fighting against the blurriness in my vision. Something wet and cold was dripping onto my wound. Drip, drip. Gabe mumbled to himself, groaning in frustration. I don't understand. This is what she did. Am I doing something wrong? Black. His blood was black. His hand was raised above the ball of light still on my chest. His palm was bleeding, a thick tar-colored liquid oozing from it and onto the light. Drip, drip, drip. For some reason I couldn't understand, the black drops that fell onto the light sizzled and started shining along, and as the gold glow slowly got brindled with silver, The searing pain in my chest started to dull a little bit. "Gabe?" "Right here, kiddo." He smiled. "Gabe," I gasped. "Am I dying?" "You're not." He ruffled my hair with his other hand. "Souls are infinite. They can't be destroyed." "Then why does it hurt?" His face scrunched up, somewhere between a grimace and a wince. "Well, they can't be destroyed, but they can be torn." I stared at the silver glow, soft and dim compared to the gold. A blank filling patchworked like scar tissue. There was a piece of me that wasn't there anymore. My identity, likes and dislikes, memories. It was hurting because there was a gap in me. Gabe was filling it back up, but he wasn't me, and he couldn't give me what he didn't have. He couldn't replace what was taken from me exactly as it was before. All the while he kept asking me a lot of things, random things. My age and blood type, my favorite color, the name of my childhood dog. I didn't have a dog. My opinion on carrots, and so on. He made me retell everything I've told here. Why I'd needed to move, and how I found his house. "Hey, what's your name?" Nothing left my mouth. I couldn't remember. I knew Gabe, and I told him what I was called when we introduced ourselves to each other, but I couldn't remember my own freaking name. "Your name's Taylor," he sighed and patted me on the head. "Why are you here?" "Because I couldn't stay at my folks' place anymore. They didn't take me coming out well, so I had to find somewhere cheap. A friend at work found out I was looking for a place to move and showed me an ad of someone looking for a roommate. He told me to go check it out." "Oh, good. And then?" "As I was going to, Dad popped up at the end of my shift after everyone left. Said he wanted to talk. He was so drunk." "And after?" I told him to leave. Said it was closing time and I had to go. He started yelling at me. I yelled back. He shoved me and I stumbled into the freezer. And the door closed and it was so cold and my breath hitched in my throat. I couldn't remember getting out, only walking and walking. It was so cold and I was freezing. I reached a porch and Gabe opened the front door. "I already died, didn't I?" He took a long while to respond. I watched him just staring out of the window into the never-ending snowstorm outside, brows furrowed like he was weighing his options. Wonder what he was thinking. Could have kept me at his place forever, watching TV, complaining of the weather, and eating meals together. A feeble substitute to the family he'd lost. But he didn't force me to stay. "You're not dead yet," he finally said, and let out a long breath. "You're in the realm Adam and Eve were expelled from, where my kind has dwelt since before the War of Heaven. This place all souls return to when they die, either attracted towards their assigned guardian's domain or guided here by them. But one doesn't need to be dead to come here. Humans with Nephilim ancestry, oracles, mediums, and astral projectors, or whatever you call them nowadays, they have the ability to walk or at least peek into here to some degree. Others can reach this place through occult rituals or crossing thresholds in places where the boundaries are blurry. But there are cases, like yours, when a body just gets so damaged they're almost dead. Almost, but not quite. So the soul wanders out until your body is fit enough to house you again. Problem is, the longer you stay out or interact with anyone here, the harder it is for you to go back. Your connections to the other side fray. So, you better get going soon." Wait, so you're my guardian angel?" He shook his head. "I've not taken in any children since Yeshua died. I'm not sure why you came to me. Maybe your actual guardian is dead, or maybe your soul was still unclaimed. You just got here by chance." He huffed and then shrugged and gave the tiniest of smiles. "Well, either way, I'm glad you got here. You've made the house feel like a home for a little while." I felt like crying again. Heck, I did cry again. No shame about that. It started with a sob, and soon I was bawling and didn't stop for a while. I wish my parents had told me that too, that they were happy to have me. They probably never would, I knew, but someone else did, and the amount of relief I felt almost made my heart explode. "You need to get back to your body, kiddo," he said, after giving me a moment to calm down. "And how do I do that?" I asked. "Do I just have to wake up somehow?" Gabe grimaced again. "If you don't know the way, I have to send you back. But I've been trying to since you got here. I don't understand why it's not working. What is it I'm missing?" He trailed off, his gaze shifting to stare at the painting across the room. "Well, it has to work both ways." He speed-walked across towards the painting, faster than I'd seen him move ever before. There was an awful noise of ceramic cracking when he did, so I guess he could run when he wanted to. It looked painful, and his steps left bloody, blackish footprints in his wake. I had to suppress a second-hand wince on his behalf. He took the painting from the wall, out of its frame, and into an envelope along with a note he hastily scribbled. "The deal's a trade between two parts, so it won't work if it's one-sided. I do something for you that you couldn't do alone. You do something for me that I couldn't do." I had no idea what he was rambling on about. I wasn't even in the right realm of existence, for heaven's sake. What could I possibly do for him that he couldn't? "Taylor." The sound of my own name again made me feel dazed. "Do you want to go back?" I nodded. "I need to send this parcel. Can you deliver it for me?" I nodded again and suddenly felt very sleepy. I think I remember him smiling with relief and nodding back at me, but not sure if he really did or if I was just dozing off. And everything faded into a blur of white. I woke up to the bright fluorescent lights of a hospital room, with an IV attached to my arm and half lulled, half risen by the beeping of medical machinery. They said I was in that walk-in fridge for 12 hours, between the time when my shift ended and when someone found me at the start of the morning shift and called an ambulance. 12 hours, in contrast to the 12 days I'd spent at Gabe's place. It was a miracle I was alive and didn't lose any body parts due to frostbite. I heard at first that the hospital had intended to contact my parents, but the police had gotten involved. Once the camera footage at my work was reviewed and they saw my dad, well, you can guess. So the doctors contacted my grandparents instead. It's weird to think of it. They were iffy about me before, too, thinking I was just going through a difficult phase and needed to snap out of it, and so on, but when they heard I'd almost died, they ran straight to see me. I've moved in with them. Well, they're old, so there's a lot of things that they still don't get, but they're trying to learn and are being supportive. It's made me cry like a fountain a couple of times by now, but in a nice way. I think I've become an official crybaby, but who cares? Well, that was all back in November. Been seeing a therapist since then. She's nice, though I'm pretty sure she doesn't believe me when I told her about Gabe. Heck, I don't think I'd believe it either if I heard it from someone else. I only know that it was real and not just a trauma-induced hallucination, because I still have his letter. The envelope was on the nightstand when I woke up in the hospital, tucked inside my backpack along with the rest of my stuff. It wasn't sealed shut, so I've looked through it a couple of times. There's the painting, just as I remembered, and a letter. I can't read the letter. I don't understand the language at all. The words are not in any alphabet I can recognize, and I start getting migraines when I look at them for too long. There's only one thing I can read, the 2 words inscribed on the outside of the envelope, probably so I'd know who would receive it. To Lucy. Well, there's no address to mail it to anywhere. Maybe I was supposed to just know where to go, and there are times when it feels like I do. Sometimes I'm walking home from work or just taking a stroll, I feel like taking a detour somewhere strange for no reason. To skip off the trail while hiking and head into the woods or into some dark alleyway I can't see the end of. Shaded corners, dark corridors, liminal spaces. All the times it's happened, I willed some sense back into myself and went home. Yeah, the unnamed angels are one reason, but I also don't want to get mugged, But it's gotten to the point past just curiosity. It became an almost unavoidable compulsion. Last week I zoned out while washing dishes after dinner, and when I came to, it was 1 a.m. and I was stepping into the yard of some abandoned building on the other side of town. It's not that I don't want to fulfill my promise to Gabe. He helped me, he saved me. I owe him that much. Even if I didn't, I don't know how much longer I can delay it anyway. The new year is approaching, and the whole world will be at a threshold. I guess I just wanted someone to know what really happened. I've queued this to be posted automatically on January 1st. Well, hopefully I'll still be here to catch it and add a little edit like, "Hey, I survived," or similar afterward, and just laugh at how silly I was being. But I'm scared. When I get wherever this deal is leading me to, Gabe won't be there to help or to send me back. And if that was really Gabriel, as in the Archangel Gabriel, then I can guess also who Lucy is. I don't think I'll make it back again.
Well, those of us up here in the Northern Hemisphere, we do tend to forget that it's not the same all over the world. And yeah, so when I say, summer's definitely over, autumn's drawing in and all that kind of thing, I do forget that it's not exactly the same as it is down south for many of you. But anyway, that's where I am, and that's how I'm talking at the end of this year. Had a beautiful day yesterday, kind of an Indian summer, 30 degrees, but today it's not quite the same. So yeah, we are definitely in the dying days of summer, and autumn is upon us. But all good. Halloween is just around the corner, and that's a big favourite for many of us in this community. Hope you enjoyed that one tonight. Another short and sweet one. Back again tomorrow, I think, with something a bit longer. Till then, my dear friends, have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.